welcome back to Mystical Sisterhood. This is your host, Maureen, and I'm here with Shiva Rose today. I can't say enough about Shiva's work. I've followed her for what feels like over 10 years, and I can't remember my point of connection with finding you, Shiva, but I'm so excited to be sitting here with you. I'm going to share with the listeners a little bit from the local Rose, your blog, just about your background, and then we'll dive in.
Okay.
So you had written, I was raised to Bohemian parents in the countryside of Iran until the revolution there occurred. I went suddenly from a childhood nurtured on imagination and nature to life as a refugee. As one assimilating to a new life, I sought solace in old films, fashion, and books, which led me to work as an actress in TV, film, and theater. After having my first daughter in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. This diagnosis and yearning for a healthy planet for my daughter propelled me on a path as a naturalist and an activist. The local Rose was born out of a desire to celebrate a holistic, healthy, authentic lifestyle without sacrificing taste and glamour.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will begin there, and I'm just going to add my own beginning reflection is I think from whenever it was that I discovered your work, I was attracted to the qualities of the feminine, the divine feminine, very earthy, authentic, like ethereal to me, and grounded in beauty and wholeness. And it just very sensual. Sensual is a word that comes to mind and draws me to your work. So welcome here with us today. And I don't know, based on that introduction and your story, where would you like to start?
Oh, well, thank you. I think our deepest desire is to be seen, right, on the plane. So thank you for seeing me. That means so much to me, especially because you were there from the beginning, and that I'm truly grateful for those people, because this was pre-Goop, right? This was pre-Goop, health wellness world, when I didn't know if anybody was interested in this world, but I kept feeling it rather than seeing. Like I knew there was something else. There was something that brought together all these things that I was yearning for, to heal myself on a not just physical level, but on a spiritual and ancestral level. So I'm so glad you were there, because it's like theater. You need the audience too.
Yes.
So even if it's one or two people, it's okay. The show must go on.
I love that. I've heard from one of my, she was a coaching instructor. It was Dr. Shafali. She leads the conscious parenting, but she always used to say, and this could have been from somewhere else, but she'd say one is a million. And so if you had that one person that listened, if the one person listened to this podcast, then it would be exponential. It just is. And so when you had these ideas and this creation wanting to come forth from you, what did you begin to find? You said you thought that you didn't know if the audience would be there. What did you, as you started to put one foot in front of the other, what happened?
It was really that. It was really just doing it, just having faith that even if one person or two people read the blog, then that was okay. I didn't go in thinking, oh my gosh, this is gonna, be a huge success and hit. It was almost like I think that with creativity, it's like that, where you just have to, it's like something that's burning inside of you. And it's almost like, if you don't do it, I think it can lead to frustrations, perhaps illness, but I think as creative beings, we have this, especially women, like if we're not giving birth to humans, then I think we have to be creating and in other ways, because we are just creative infernos. I feel like we have this womb, we have this this ability to create life. And if it's not a physical human, then it could be a garden in your house, or, a recipe, or a book. Or I think we're just built that way. And I
Oh,
think
I
it's
love
part of
that.
our longevity. I think it really feeds into our longevity, especially as we go into our second spring, which
Yeah.
is the topic I'm fascinated with right now, because I'm going to be going through the change. And my youngest is leaving for college. So I'm reading a lot about how women, in some cultures, in Japan, they call it your second spring, which I think is beautiful,
It's so beautiful. It's
so beautiful. Like in
yes.
the Western culture, it's like they don't even talk about it or see it, or.
Well, and I don't know what, like, if you think of that word menopause, it feels like it's time in between, but then it doesn't really address that time maybe very well, nor what comes after it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have thought about this. I've been thinking a lot about it. Is, in the goddess culture, there's the triad, which is maiden, mother, crone. But I'm sure you've heard this too, but women, we're living, to 70s, 80s, 90s. So the crone doesn't really, I don't think we get into the crone till our 70s. So a lot of people in that world have decided to create this other season, which
Yeah.
makes sense. There's four seasons, there's four directions. So I think it's maiden, mother, and then some call it maga, which is like magician. Some call it enchantress, some call it medicine woman, healer, and then we go into our crone after that. So that feels so much better for me. I mean,
Oh, it's
for you
beautiful.
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's such an important message for women to hear. And I can just imagine people thinking, who, me? Me? Does that apply to me too? But it applies to all of
Of
us.
course, of course.
Yes. Yes. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love the second spring. And so I don't know, Shiva, your work, I wanted to, for anyone that does watch on YouTube, your book, Whole Beauty, that came out in 2018, is this beautiful compilation of practices that are very, very meaningful to you, that you've learned. I can see that you embody within the way that you share them with us. But, one of the things that I know is very important to you and has become ritualistic is the practice of ritual. So can
Mm-hmm.
you talk to us about why that is so meaningful? Not just on, like,
Mm-hmm.
not just making statements about it, but just why? Like, well, how does that benefit us as women?
Yeah, I think it just makes life so much more beautiful, and it makes life into a miracle rather than just life, the ordinary, mundane life. Like when you put the ritual is basically putting an intention,
Mm-hmm.
right? Anything can become a ritual. Even laundry can become a ritual. But when you put this intention of beauty and devotion to it,
Mm-hmm.
then it changes it from the mundane to something special. And I don't know about you, but I'd like to live in that magical realm. It just makes my life richer. So I wake up every morning before dawn and I do the tea ceremony. So I do a tea ritual. And not only am I drinking my morning tea, but it's also like meditative. I'm thinking about my day. I'm talking to my guides. I'm talking to source, God, and then I watch the sunrise. So there's like it just helps. I find that if I skip that for some strange reason, my day is just not the way it doesn't feel as good. So,
So, yeah. And in that, you're creating the space for it. So, again, I think that one thing that when I was looking at your work and your book, it was around, you said practices are important because women, we've learned to live in this masculine way more than ever. And so, that's not a bad thing. It's just a product of the society that we've been living in. So, this idea that we can actually create that space.
oh yeah,
It's not just Shiva living in this other
no.
world over here. It's critical for us and our life's path, because when you talk about slowing down, intentionality, it's not just routine, because you said that in the book, routine becomes ritual. like you just said, when it has intention and mindfulness to it. So how beautiful. To me, that says, slow down, Maureen. You're worth it. That's an underlying theme, the worthiness
Right.
and deservingness. And you can create this. So how do we create space? Like for a busier individual who's like, I love what they're saying, but I just don't have time.
Yes. Well, that's why I get up before anyone else
Yeah.
is up. And I actually, and at first you might be like, oh, I prefer to have that hour of sleep, but really, I think it feeds you in such a deep way. And then
Mm-hmm.
maybe you'll end up going to sleep an hour earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get up with the rhythm of the sun and the moon, once you have that circadian rhythm, and also the healing benefits of the morning sun, I think once you start living that way, it just becomes second nature and it's not such a big deal. So, yes, you carve it out. I get up before my partner, before my daughter, before I have to get her ready for school, before the animals. I get up first. I make it a priority. And it's not always easy in the beginning, but you begin to it's my favorite thing now. I love being the only one awake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love that everybody else is asleep and that I'm tiptoeing around and it's like my domain. And,
Yes.
there's something very special and magical about that.
There is. And when I'd like you to say some things about a tea ceremony because I have not created one for myself. I haven't experienced it with others. Um, but can you talk about tea ceremony? And I'm thinking if it's something you do for yourself too, it seems like a really beautiful, honoring, slowing
Oh,
down thing
yeah.
to do for
And you
yourself.
don't need, all you need is a bowl. That's what I tell
Okay.
people when they want to start. You get a beautiful tea. I can refer you to the place where I get tea, but you can also just get, as long as it's organic and clean, take some tea leaves, actual tea leaves, green tea or something, or the teas that I drink are called living tea. And you just put them in a bowl. Everybody has a bowl. You can get tea and everyone has access to hot water. So it's not
Yeah.
like you need a whole tea ceremony set.
Right.
But something about that, filling that bowl with water, watching the tea and then drinking it. There's something so just beautiful about that. It's also filling our bowls as women.
Yeah.
We are made to receive, right? And how much do you receive in a day? I don't know about you, but I'm not receiving a lot from the people I love, which is fine. But it's
Yeah.
like, I have to start nourish myself so my bowl is filled.
Mm-hmm.
And once my bowl is filled, then I can give to the others.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love that because you're creating the experience for yourself. And when we do that, we don't have to sit, we can ask for what we need with those around us, but we can also give to ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah. So how in what capacity do you perform tea ceremonies in? I know when we were originally supposed to record, you said, Maureen, I have a tea ceremony. So what does that look like?
Well, I'm so grateful and blessed that I get to be of service. So I do tea ceremonies with people where
Mm-hmm.
I actually will serve a group of people tea. It's from a tea tradition, which if you want any information at globalteahut.com or .net, globalteahut.net maybe is where my tea group
Mm,
resides, and they talk all about it on that site. And I was very blessed that I got to go to China and study tea and go to the tea farms and meditate with my tea group on tops of mountains. And this is right before COVID, and
yeah.
I'm so glad that I got to do that because I've really gone this journey with tea. And it's not, tea is such a beautiful, pure tea is such a beautiful plant,
Mm,
and it's an adaptogen. But this practice, our tea teacher basically took the very ornate, elaborate tea ceremonies of China and Japan and Taiwan and simplified them. So it's basically you and nature. He wanted us to deeply connect to
yeah.
nature through the leaf. So that's how he stripped it, and it's very beautiful. And we use water and bowls and
Oh,
tea
lovely.
cup. Yeah, it's very lovely.
Yeah.
But when it's for myself, I
Mm-hmm.
don't do, it's not elaborate. I just have the bowl and the teapot and my tea.
Yeah.
I don't do the thing, I light a candle, and that's it. You don't have to do the whole elaborate thing for yourself.
But it's a way. I love that though. I love when you talk about that journey you went on to China to learn the ceremony and the shortened version of it, I feel like so much ancient lineage is coming through you. And so with every tea ceremony you bring to another, you not only bring your ancestral, but of other cultures too.
Yes,
Yeah.
like the codes, but the whole idea with tea too is that I'm sort of the vessel it's coming through, but you have your experience. So someday, hopefully, I can serve you and you'll see you. I'm supposedly a clear channel, and you get to have your experience with the tea, like what you feel and what, and that's why I love doing it, because everybody has a different experience,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. Women usually cry, especially women who've never done it. I think one, because it's done in silence, which is like blows people's minds that, but there's so much that you transmit through silence. Number one is that, and number two is that women, you just have to receive, and sometimes it's so hard for women. They're just like, wait, I don't have to do anything.
Yes. Yes.
And then
Yes.
and then three, they just get it. They get that you're just supposed to be there and have your emotions and your feelings, and that's the whole
Beautiful.
process.
Such a gift. I love that. In one of the chapters of Whole Beauty, you refer to being, I think it was, a feminine feminist. Can you say a little bit about that? I hadn't heard that term before, but yeah.
I think I've always been that way. Well, Anais Nin, I think, coined that term, a feminine feminist, who's one of my favorite writers, Anais Nin. I love being a woman. I do not want to be, I want doors opened for me. I want men to carry groceries for me. And I'm in Texas, where it's like, part of the culture. I love that. Like, I want to go back to that. I am not built like a man, and surely don't want to work like a man. Like, that's not in no way. Like, and I've tried to be in a man's world, done that. And it just didn't, my nervous system was wrecked. My health was wrecked. That's just not the way we fluctuate on a whole different cycle, whole different calendar. Men, their testosterone is so high in the morning, and then it wanes by the afternoon, and then it dips in the evening. So they have one cycle on the day, daily. They're like the sun. It's like rise, repeat, rise, repeat, rise, repeat. Women are like the moon. Our cycle is 28 to 30 days. So we are on a completely different clock. When we're, ovulating, we may be more prone to like wanting to do business and be out there. When we're having our moon, we just want to, be in bed and be under the sheets and go into our dark cave. We have a cycle that lasts 28 to 30 days, whereas they have a cycle so we're different beings. We cannot work in the same industry as they do, with that. I think it would ruin us. I'm not saying women aren't as powerful or creative, I think women, when we are working in our feminine space, we can surpass, like we become even more successcul and more powerful. And by the way, for women who aren't cycling, you still go through those fluctuations. You just aren't bleeding anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. There's been so many reminders, I feel, and I'm wondering if you're seeing it expand, what you're seeing in the world too. But I think there is a call for the feminine right now. And I think that I just feel like it's coming through different guests who are coming in. And that's why your message is so, to me, so it's like really palpable, and it brings something that we can practice and new ideas to cultivate this side of us that may feel more dormant. And that's when you talk about the women in the tea ceremony, they're coming into that feminine and that ability to express and flow and be and all the beauty. Yeah.
And women need other women. Our DNA actually changes when we are around other women. Like, we are meant to be in circles and gatherings, and we need it for our health. So that's another thing, I think, why women sometimes cry too, is just because they're like, oh, like this feels so good.
I know. And I've had women saying to me more as I've started this, and everything became on Zoom over the pandemic. They're like,
oh yeah,
we want in person. We want in person. People are really craving that. So yes. So I also was, a few of the things that when you talk about ritual or you talk about, you just mentioned adaptogens. So obviously, in a lot of your work, it's very holistic. It's about the quality of food that we're consuming, our practices. But you had autoimmune disorder, so did you just pull all these different practices, and did you just how did it come through so
Oh
clearly to
gosh.
you, like
Oh
what you
gosh, no, no,
needed?
it took so long. It took so long. It took so long. I can say that. And by the way, healing is
Hmm.
circular, it's not linear. So it's like,
No.
you move one step forward, two steps back, three steps forward, three steps back, like it's not, it's kind of like a circular journey. So, and no, my gosh, it took so many decades. And by the way, you're still like, God willing, I'm doing good now, but there's always, you know what I mean? It's like we're evolving. We're constantly like bombarded with heavy metals or emotional stuff or being on our screens too. There's always some layer that we can
Mm-hmm.
remedy and fix. But so yes, it was a long journey. I think one thing led to another, finding a more functional doctor, doing parasite cleanses, which I never even thought about that 20 years ago. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, parasite cleanses, like number one. Like that is like, we all have parasites. I don't care who you are, you've got parasites. You've got to get rid of the, if you have a health issue, then that's
Mm-hmm.
number one, detox your body from that. Eat organic. Yes, eat organic now more than ever because they're finding out the glyphosate, what it does to our gut and our brain. And it's in so many
Yeah.
things. So as much as you can eat organic. The water, like more and more every day we're finding out how toxic our water systems are.
Yeah.
And that's key. Water should be alive, water should be energized. I'm doing a course right now, or working on a course. It's called Waterways in Women. It's about how women especially we need our wells well watered. We are
Mm-hmm.
like juicy creatures, and that's part of aging. I think when people start aging is because they're not getting enough hydration, either through food or oils or water.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I can't wait for that one.
Thanks.
And it's such a good reminder because yes, food is medicine. And I think that, I take it that you've lived in warmer climates and access to nature. And I was thinking even this morning, because I'm right outside of Chicago, we're a colder climate. I don't live in a place that has direct access to a lot of nature. And what do you say to that? And for people who are a little more landlocked, or they have
Yeah.
to travel a little further to access nature
I
and
totally understand that. Yes.
mm-hmm.
Well, I would say create a little altar in your
Mm,
house. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And even if it's like a one flower or one herb or something that's representing that, it could even be in a pot.
yeah.
You have a beautiful altar and you add a candle and the sun, you could most probably,
Mm,
unless it's a cloudy day, you can always seek the sun. You can always seek the moon. Um, Definitely it's not as easy. But now that I live in a place with more, because we have days of ice and snow here and cold gray, and it's
mm-hmm.
definitely that's probably been a big transition for me. Like I
Yeah.
commend you, and I know why people are hardier
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Me who was in California or I love Hawaii,
Yeah.
Hawaii, but these places you don't like when you're living in these places where you really see like for me what was so hard was getting used to like everything being gray or brown like
Mm-hmm.
in the winter and it would get me down, because I wasn't used to it. And then now I'm honoring it. I'm getting it. I'm getting that
I
these
love
are the
that.
seasons.
Yeah.
And this is what, even for us, we have seasons. And then how much do you enjoy spring even more
Mm,
now because you get
mm-hmm.
to live through a real
Yes.
winter?
Oh, spring was always my favorite ever since I was a young girl. I grew up in northern
Oh,
Indiana, and I always thought it was the time of rebirth. It was the time of renewal. And isn't that interesting? As a little girl,
yes.
that concept, that female kind of feminine concept of rebirth and
Oh,
renewal. Of course. Um,
you knew. I think as children, we know so much.
yeah, but that's a great point you make about because when you talk about ritual in the book, you talk about how altars, creating an altar can alter us and alter
Ah,
our
thank
experience.
you.
And I love that play on words because it's true. And thank you for that reminder, because it, some people might go extreme and say there's no way I can have that contact with nature, but what you're saying is like, no, you can go pull, like, be with nature, pull the grass in the summer, whatever it is, as long as it's not fertilized, but put it
Yes.
on that altar. And along with anything, the crystals that are meaningful to you, you've got great parts of the book of like blessing the crystals and
Or being
bringing,
barefoot. I mean, it might be hard in the
yes,
snow, but
yeah,
being barefoot, like you can go into a piece of just a ground anywhere that's not cemented over, even
mm-hmm.
in the city, you can find that somewhere. And standing on the earth, but again, they're finding out more and more miraculous things from that.
That's amazing. So it's these things that seem so small, but they actually, when done with intention, bring a lot of meaning into our lives. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
minerals too, just to say, like, I think we're, especially when you live in these winter places, I think the adding minerals to your water and to your body, it
Yeah.
can do so much for you.
How do you add minerals, Shiva?
Well, I love, there's Quinton, it's just those glass vials. It's actually just seawater that is formulated and clean that has all the
Mhm.
minerals. I use that. I use things like shilajit or fulvic acid. This is all like, those are more like detoxifying
Yeah.
minerals. But everybody, I think, needs iodine, selenium, magnesium. I mean, I mean, copper. I think most people need that because our
Yeah.
soil is depleted, and we used
Mm-hmm.
to get it from our food in our soil. But
Mm.
if our soil is depleted and has all this stuff, then you should add that. I mean, I think everyone I'm not a doctor, but I can confidently say everyone needs magnesium,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
you can't, it just calms your nervous system. It helps you with healing your body faster. It helps you sleep. It's just like
Yeah.
something that I think we need. And that's what they say you get from grounding in the earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
And I think it's such an important topic of conversation for this period in time because my father had Parkinson's, and I was just reading an article the other day, or it was a link to a blog post about um, a chemical that's very related to Parkinson's. So it's that when I was reading about how you love Ayurveda and Ayurvedic medicine, you were talking about how you had written everything is about the ways in which the body can detox. So just piggybacking on how you're just talking about these minerals, tell me more about Ayurveda, because it's always been one of those things that's this big topic to me, and
Yeah.
I'm so hungry for it at the same time, but I
It
don't know.
doesn't, yeah, no, I know it can be overwhelming. No, it doesn't have to be. I mean, in a nutshell, okay, it's been around 5,000 years, so
Mm-hmm.
they know something, right?
Yeah.
And yes, they believe a lot that we're healthy as long as we're detoxing.
Okay.
As long as you detox when you sleep, you detox when you use the bathroom, you detox when you sweat, when you detox. So as long as these channels are open, you are okay. Because
Mm-hmm.
we make cancer cells every day.
Yeah.
But we are able to like break it down and detox it and like remedy it. And this is when everything is working. So I think if any of those things are not working, we should be alarmed if we're
Right.
not eating or sleeping or going to the bathroom or,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But in Ayurveda, basically it's that the idea of detoxing daily with oil pulling or dry brushing your skin, which moves the lymph. See, they're so, and they just know, they knew about the
Yes.
lymph system within us, which is our biggest garbage disposal in our body. So once that's flowing and moving, through dry brushing, through movement, um, they also believe in like the doshas. I don't know if you know, there's like vata, pitta, and kapha, and then most of the time we're most of one thing or a combination of things. And when you read about that, it's so fascinating because vata is usually people who are thin and wiry and prone to cold and dry,
Mm-hmm.
and then pitta is more like fiery and red and they crave spicy foods, and kapha is like kind of like lazy chill and voluptuous and, and so we all have a little bit of these three things, but some people are more prone to one than the other. And when there's an imbalance in Ayurveda, you learn how to add something to
Beautiful.
help that.
Yes.
Right. Because if you're Vata, like I'm Vata, which is dry, and I need more kapha, so I need more butter and ghee and oil.
Okay.
So that's like
Yeah.
how you start figuring all that out.
Oh, I love it. But I would love to learn more about Ayurveda. That's because I think it's a beautiful way to work with our bodies and learn about our just what is best for ours. That's been a challenge for me. I always I think that's why I'm so attracted to your work. And I appreciate you saying, like, Maureen, no, it's like, it's a journey. It's not a race. There's not an end. It's how can each and every day, how can I really honor and treat myself really well? And I love that about the work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you find, you go down a path and it works, and you go down another path that doesn't work. And I think it's kind of that situation, especially with healing,
Yeah.
healing
Yeah.
I think root cause is also important. Like for me, I really, with autoimmune, they just shrug their shoulders. They're like, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to come up with my own theory on what the root cause was, and then, go that way. And I think I think medicine, we're finally starting to hear that word more, root cause, which is making people think. Like with I'm curious if you thought, what do you think with Parkinson? What do you think causes that?
I'm not sure. And I had gone through a breast cancer journey, and so I've had that same question for myself. And I was talking with a friend who's going through a cancer journey right now, and I've always said, I think ever since I experienced it, that we as individuals get to say what we think it is, right? And not and that is our truth. And I think that for me, it's a blend of emotional things that were going on there. I had genetic testing done, and I knew it wasn't that for me that could be determined. But there could be outside influences. I had an estrogen positive type. So who knows how much of those xenoestrogens my body had been soaking in and taking in. And so, but I think when I had my diagnosis too, I had forsaken a lot of sleep for many, many years. I had probably had a lot of stress, and another light bulb that was more nutritional was too much sugar.
Yeah.
And it was like, I knew those things. So, I mean, I don't know, like when you think about what came to you for root cause?
Well, the autoimmune stuff, I would say, definitely, childhood trauma, extreme trauma, and then eating. I was a vegetarian for so many years, and I was eating all like GMO wheat and pasta and muffins and bread. I just didn't know, but in the 90s, that's like all, because I was a vegetarian, I just consumed that, and it was wreaking havoc probably on my gut. Some other things that maybe I don't know if I'm allowed to mention. So, but basically heavy metals. I think I had a lot of heavy metals. So it was a combination. I don't think it's sometimes one thing. It's a few things that create the situation, the perfect storm.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that intuitively, some of those things to be true, even if they can't be sort of proven yet on the outside. We just know if each of our bodies is unique, then, and so many opportunities for healing that come out of it. When did Kundalini yoga enter your life?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's interesting how it always like was coming forth, but I didn't totally hook onto it until later. Because I talk about my first doctor that was a functional doctor who said he could help me feel better was a Sikh, was a Kundalini, practice Kundalini, was a Sikh. And then, during pregnancy, I went to a few Gurmukh's class. She was a big yoga teacher in LA, a Sikh teacher. But it wasn't until I was getting divorced and I was just needed, I needed healing. I was suffering and I just, wanted something. And my good friend invited me to meet her friend. It turns out it's Guru Jagat. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a big Kundalini teacher that passed away sadly. But I started practicing with her and my friend Jennifer. 4 times a week, and I just got hooked because I saw how you could really change the neural pathways of your brain. And I really do think, like, if you have trauma that you need to change, I don't think talk therapy really works. I think there's 2 things that work, 3 things probably. One is hypnosis. 2 is Kundalini, where you actually go in and rewire the brain with these movements and meditations and mantras and kriyas. And 3, maybe I haven't done this, but maybe if you go with a practitioner and do some sort of journey, a plant journey or something, maybe that could. So I really feel those are the ways to really transmute something. Beautiful. And I just was able to change my life, and I loved it.
I love that. I was reading about Kundalini in the last year, and I had gone to the website of the teacher you just referred to. And so we'll share some resources too with the listeners. And I found it overwhelming at first. And I'm curious. So
good. I'm glad.
yes. And you had written in the book that because you talk about mantras, but we can talk about both things, but in the, how powerful mantras can be. And then I think you listed your Spotify playlist. Was it White Sun, maybe?
Oh yeah, they're
and I just turned that on this morning when I was just preparing for it. It was so pretty. And but tell me more about Kundalini, like for the beginner, where do you begin? And I noticed like even the powerful of the cat cow practice that you do, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think my book is helpful if you're just starting, because I just showed like the basics and like what to do if you want to start this practice, because it is overwhelming. If you Google it, you'll be like, oh my God, it's too much. And there's so much controversy with Yogi Bhajan, he's the person who brought who channeled a lot of these things from ancient Sikhism, and he brought it to America in the 70s. But he, attracted all these drug addicts and depressed teenage people that were down, and he managed to lift them up, and they changed their lives. Because it's really, I think it's a technology. It's an actual technology that when you do a kriya and you have the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and you're maneuvering your fingers and you're looking up at your pituitary, this actually secretes glands in your system. So it's not, it may sound like hokey, what you're doing, but you're actually secreting things in your adrenals, your thyroid, your thymus. And that's why it's so powerful. And I think it really does work. And the mantras are so beautiful. And for me, who had such monkey mind, like meditating was the last thing I thought I could do, because my brain was always working overtime. But with Kundalini, between breathing and doing the mantra and the kriya, I can't think of my everyday problems. So it was a good way to really shut down that part of my brain,
Yeah. And you're reminding me that I think when I began and I was looking into it, I was the hungry seeker. It was a time commitment that was a lot to me, because a lot of the videos on this particular website were like an hour or longer. So is it possible to begin in shorter swatches of time?
Definitely. And I think like in my book too, I talk about, there's like 3 exercises each 3 minutes. You could do 11 minutes. Sometimes most of the days I just do 11 minutes.
Okay.
I don't have time to do the whole thing. But then last weekend, I finally got to sit down and do a class with, on Zoom with Rama in LA. And it was so nice to do that. So once in a while, to do that. But the maintenance, once you get it, you can definitely just have a shortened period.
Yes. And I'm thinking, because you had the shorter period where you're literally doing on all fours, the cat cow positions, and I'm sure paired with breathing, is that just like center you and get you into your body?
It does. And it's so good for your back. I mean, just on Sikh Kundalini people say you should be doing cat cow. It's very good for the spinal column and just everything.
Okay. I so many practices that I'm thinking of this whole conversation today, but the beauty of it, and the beauty of what's really coming to me these days, and I think it's coming through a lot of people who are coming to speak on the podcast, is the sacred nature of everything that really surrounds us, and
Mm.
how we can intentionally begin to pull and make our lives like just so rich with intention and meaning. um Talk about the moon before we, finish this discussion today, because I want people to know that you've got a course online called The Moon and You. And I think there's a lot of waking up around the moon going on. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
I was just texting with my friend today, and I was telling her what I just told you. We were saying how like men are like the sun and women are like the moon, because we fluctuate and we have, we wax and we wane and we, go dark, the dark moon, and then we go full. And, that's why I think women are very connected to the moon. And at one time we lived outdoors, and we fluctuated with the moon, we farmed with the moon, we were, that was our
Oh, yeah.
light, form of light. And we actually used to get rays, the moon rays, which gives you vitamin D, believe it or not. The
Mm,
moonlight gives you vitamin D, which is like, people don't realize that, but yes, the
no.
moon is definitely an integral part of us. And it moves the tides of the ocean, right? And we
Mhm.
are 78% water, so how can it not affect our tides, our
That's
water?
amazing. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And
amazing.
so I go out like even this morning when I took my son to school, we looked and the moon was still, I could see this
Yeah.
in the sky. So is there such a thing as even moon gazing, or kind of connecting with the moon like that?
Yeah, no, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
funny though. In Kundalini, they say don't look at the moon too
Mm.
much. It's funny they have. I know they have like a thing, but I definitely will. It comes in our skylight
Mm-hmm.
down on me.
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
to look at it, but I feel its energy and rays. And the moon is very cooling and that way. Oh, did I lose you?
I'm here. Yeah, it just paused for a minute.
Oh,
So I think in the course, because I was just looking at your outline, it's kind of funny when you were talking. I'm thinking like, here we are reading books about the moon, and you're saying in olden times, like we just knew about the moon, and if we lived in that way,
right,
still we would
right,
just
right.
know. We wouldn't have to
Yeah,
learn. We just knew. But
yes.
I love that, because is there with the moon? Is there just a lot of metaphors for life? Is there just
Oh, so much. And also, when you think back to when it was a matriarchal society, we had a moon calendar,
Mhm.
and then when they came along with the Gregorian calendar, they still kept remnants, so they couldn't get rid of everything. And that's why we're on a 28-day calendar. It's connected to the moon, which is also connected to our cycles,
Mm,
which is
mhm.
so interesting. And also, what just blew me away is it's also around how many years a woman has her menstruation, like 28 to 30 years. So
Wow.
it's all like when you start seeing like all
Ooh.
these
Yes.
synchronicities, you're
Yes.
like, wait a second, there is a connection here.
I
How can
love
there
that.
not be? I think
Yeah.
we try to like remove us from nature so much that and sadly, so many of us have, but slowly I think we're reclaiming it. I think we're waking up and being like, wait a second here.
Well, and there can be these outer things that are natural to the world that can guide us. That it doesn't have to be the things that we go purchase or buy, or what's newest on
Right.
Amazon and can be at our doorstep the next day. Because it
Yes.
reminds me of what you're saying. I recently went to a moon ceremony, and the astrologer leading it said that with, I think it was the Aquarian return, the uh
Mm. Age of
yeah,
Aquarius coming
yes, or
back.
that like how they say the planetary return being every 240 years, and she was just talking about the significance. I would have never known that they're like, this happened 240 years ago correlating to now, and this is what it means for our lives
Yeah.
now here in modern culture. But it made complete sense. So I love learning about these other ways that are here for us to live our lives.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
they can be tools,
Mm-hmm.
they can
Mm-hmm.
be tools. And especially like in Kundalini too, they say, let's use these celestial
Yeah.
events for our benefit. Let's use the eclipse. Let's use the
Mm-hmm.
moon time. We have them here. Let's use them for our benefit.
Yeah. Are you seeing with women that whom you work with that they're almost like, because I look at you and your body of work and think like, oh my gosh, that you have your skill set, but it's the things that you were personally attracted to, the things that were meant to come forth from within you. Do you kind of see that neat, like just unfolding with the women in front of you and what, how their unique expression, I guess it is.
Yes, I think everyone, yes, that, but I do think there's a lot of women that are being attracted to the old god, goddess ways or pagan ways or nature
Mm,
ways. I think there is a lot of that happening because I think there's an attraction there for sure. And also
mm,
it's just like, I feel like we've been let down by so
yeah,
many things. A lot of women are now birthing their babies at home. There's like, so
yeah,
there's a renaissance happening. A lot of
yeah.
people are becoming their own medicine people, rather
Mm-hmm.
than going the way pharmaceuticals or doctors, because they're just losing faith in that. So I think there's definitely a little
Yeah.
awakening revolution happening.
Yeah. And I wonder, just sitting here talking to you, is like, is it a reaction of even the tumultuous times of recent years and just where we're being called back to remember?
Definitely. And
Mm-hmm.
also, like, God forbid, I think we're all like, what is happening in the world? And if things get crazy, what do I do? I better learn about the herbs in my yard. I better learn how to make a fire. I better learn how to, figure out the time
Love
without a
that.
watch or clock or.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a good reminder. I think that I just want to share with the audience. This was from your moon course, but just how you said there's a major shift happening on this planet right now. The moon in all its glory and power is starting to shine again, coming out of a long exile or an eclipse. As a society, we are becoming more aware of the connection to older ways of living in harmony with our planet. At the same time, women's rights and voices are starting to come to the surface as well, to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. And that is not by surprise. There is a direct correlation between the moon and earth reemerging and the feminine voice. In this Aquarian age, we are trying to bridge the gap between the schism that was created between men and women, masculine and feminine, sun and moon. So beautiful. I mean,
Oh,
and
thank you.
what an invitation, Shiva, just for us to be drawn into. I wanted to ask you before we end, I want to ask you a question, but is there anything that you would add to our conversation that you feel needs to be expressed right now?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think we are needed more than ever.
Mm,
Us that are nurturers and don't want violence and don't want, innocent children, and we need we need ourselves to rise up now and, take charge. And we do that maybe in our house first and then in our community, and then we can do it, I think that we have to start
yeah.
because I think we're needed more than ever to save
Hmm.
our planet for our children.
I love that. And thank you for being such a goddess and leader of women in that kind of movement. Okay. The listeners may not understand this, so we can explain it. But my big question for you, which was always the one that I waited for in every blog post, is are you a mermaid or a forest fairy?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Thank you so much. That's so, I know one's ever asked me that.
Well,
It only took me 10 years or more to get.
yeah, yes. And so
Oh.
we'll let Shiva answer that. But I have repeated that question to friends across the years, like, oh my gosh, I follow this woman and she always asks this, and people say like, that is the best question ever. But if you go to Shiva's The Local Rose, where she has all these amazing interviews, and I was telling her before we recorded today that I think that one of the reasons I loved her work was she always did a Q&A with these people who she
Oh.
wanted to kind of lift up and have a platform for, because she saw their beautiful work and wanted to share with the world. But the last question was always, are you a mermaid or forest fairy? So
That is so sweet. Thank you.
yes.
I don't work much on the blog as much, but there's
Yeah.
still so many good things to look
So many
at.
good
And
things. Yes.
but that is a hard one because I know you probably know I'm going to say this, but I'm both.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm both. I feel like I'm a mermaid and a forest
Oh,
fairy.
it is the best
And the
question.
mermaid is but the mermaid is searching because that's been one of the hardest things in Texas is I'm not near the ocean. And that's truly like, I dream of the ocean. I cry for the ocean. And when the rivers are flowing, I'm happy, but there's been a drought. So I don't even have the creek or the river. And I feel like
Yeah.
I'm this mermaid that's lost for its body of water. So
Oh my gosh, that's so perfect. Well, Shiva, we've mentioned a couple things as we've gone along. Where can the listener find you?
Oh, well, thank you so much. The book that you mentioned, Whole Beauty, is definitely has everything, has all of this.
Mm-hmm.
On Instagram, I'm Local Rose, and then I have Shiva Rose Beauty, which is my skincare line.
Yes.
So either of those places, and then the blog that you mentioned has all of that too, which is thelocalrose.com.
I love that. Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about the skincare line, but I think that just the
That's
beauty
okay.
of it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it came.
exactly.
You can tell it's like came from Kundalini. It came from this conversation.
Yes, and it's beautiful, non-toxic, all the things that our bodies are really craving right now. And I want to say too, it came through another guest I had on, but I just love like how even with the beauty products and the way that we treat ourselves, that we can create rituals from that and really slow down. And it's the way we wash our face, it's the way we touch our skin when we put on the lotion, and it can all be just a really enriching experience. So I just want to say so much gratitude for being here today, Shiva. It's been just so much fun having you. Yeah.
Thank you. Lovely meeting
Yes, you
you.
too. And thank you to the listener as
Oh, wait.
always.
Are
Yes.
you a forest fairy or a mermaid?
You know, I was telling you, I'm in Chicago here, but I think my heart is in the ocean. I think that it's always been the water that draws me. And I think one of the things was my parents always used to take us to Florida every year. We would drive. I have 5 siblings. They would pack us in a Vandura van and we would drive 20 plus hours to
Oh my
Florida.
God.
But it would be the beginning of waking up to the sound of the ocean. So, and
Oh,
I think that just always spoke to my heart
I
so
just got
much.
chills.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that. So thank you. Okay, thank you, listeners, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit MaureenSpielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode.